What's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So I've got an update for you guys on Hurricane Lee. So we again are in our usual update, this evening update I've got for you guys on Lee. So for our Friday update, Lee actually was a Category 5 hurricane as of this morning. So, it is very crazy and scary at the same time to see Lee becoming a Category 5 hurricane in a very, very short amount of time. But it is dealing with some pretty strong shear, which is bringing it back down to Category 4 status. It's kind of, as a forecaster, it's frustrating to not have the chance to forecast this thing when it was a Category 5, but it still has 150 mile an hour wind, so it's 7 miles an hour away from being a Category 5 hurricane. So we still have another a secondary shot somewhere around early Sunday that we could see re-strengthening with Lee, and it could redevelop into a Category 5 hurricane. All right, but as of now, it's a high-end Category 4 with a minimum central pressure of 942 millibars. I believe we had 2 aircraft recons missions that took place that went through Lee. I was looking at just the drop zones, and they did pick up winds that were over 170 miles an hour at the near the surface. So Lee was certainly a very strong storm. Even as early as around 10:30 p.m. Eastern time last night, I think we were dealing with a Category 5 hurricane. But now it is a high-end Category 4. Behind it, we have a very fastly moving Tropical Storm Margot. It's a 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm, so it's a weak tropical storm still, but it is expected to become a hurricane as we get into next week. But this is just going to be a fish storm. But Lee, we really got to make sure we're looking at what impacts it could bring. So looking at the satellite here, it doesn't look impressive. You must be wondering, how is this a Category 4 hurricane? Well, you have two things one thing that is really causing the storm, or two things that are causing the storm to kind of just weaken, but you also have another thing that's helping the storm, okay? So we'll start off with what's weakening the storm here. So as you probably know, I've been talking about this in the past. So we have some very strong ridging that's pushing the storm down, okay? That's definitely bothering Lee, but not by much. The main reason is all this shear coming up and ripping out, okay, uppercutting this northwestern part of the storm, okay? You can see that once the eye gets to this point here, it's so close to those outer bands that you pretty much don't have any. And then rather on the eastern side, you'll have very healthy, very healthy rain bands in general. Okay. Then so you have the ridging and the wind shear. Okay, but there is still a lot of inflow here. There is so much inflow coming into the storm here with this thunderstorm buildup and all this convection out here. So there is still some rain band development with the system. That's what is going to help Lee, because Lee is right now in that middle of the zone we saw it on the projection earlier in the week by the models, that we were going to see Lee squeeze through those 2 high pressure centers. That's happening pretty much right now. So once we get away from that, that's when Lee could have another shot at becoming a Category 5 hurricane. I personally don't think so, but that's pretty much why we're really not seeing a very impressive storm as of now. Regardless of how strong the winds are, the winds are incredibly strong, but it's not looking nearly as scary and powerful as it did last night. Waking up this morning and seeing this thing at an absolutely monster 170 mile an hour Category 5 storm, that is something crazy. But we were expecting this to become a Category 5 hurricane as of right now, but it is a Category 4. So, it's just something that happens with tracking hurricanes, is that sometimes you expect them to do something and they do pretty much the opposite. But I should have rephrased that about expecting this to become a Category 5 hurricane by now. So as of this morning, we were expecting this to be a Category 5 hurricane, like right now, but it is a Category 4 hurricane. So just going to be looking at Zoom Earth here. I like to look at this sometimes, especially when we're tracking the tropics here. I just want to show you this is the past and the present of late here, and also the future. So you see these pinks here? These are Category 5 markings here. So we see here, this was as of 2 a.m. this morning. We had a 165 mile per hour Category 5 hurricane, okay? Let's go back to that and see what the satellite looked like. I mean, this thing is an absolute beast. I mean, just look at this. I mean, this is very dynamic. It had some shear. Look at all this shear right here on the western side of the storm. So I'm telling you guys, if we didn't have the shear, this would just go off. I don't even know how strong this would get. It would be I would be out of words to describe how strong this thing would get if it weren't for the ridging and the shear. I think also if it went out to sea, it definitely wouldn't have gotten this strong. But it's just if those two components were changed a little bit, this thing could have gotten a lot stronger. But it's pretty much was a Category 5 hurricane from 8 p.m. last night to about I think it was around 11 a.m. Today when we saw this thing changing back to a Category 4 hurricane. You can see right here. Actually, this is saying 8 a.m. Okay, so yeah, I mean. Yeah, it was very unexpected. Okay, I didn't think personally that we were gonna see it go back down to Category 4 this quickly. But here we are now. We have a 150 mile an hour Category 4 hurricane, and we're expecting this thing to continue moving as a Category 4 hurricane here. And we see this getting actually back down to 140 mile an hour with 140 mile an hour winds. Okay, so I mean you can see here by Sunday. This is when I was talking about that time frame for when it could re-strengthen. I mean, it's gaining some winds here, 145 mile an hour winds. I mean, it's going to be a struggle for Lee, really, to get back to Category 5 status. I don't think it's going to make it, but, it's really showing a lot of persistence and strength here. But we get up until Wednesday of next week, okay? And we're expecting a Category 3 hurricane out of Lee with 125 mile an hour winds. So this is the final. This was the final time frame we see this storm as a Category 4 hurricane, okay? But I mean, yeah, Lee is just chugging out there, trying to get through these areas of ridging and wind shear out here. But once it gets to this area here, I think we could really see this thing trying to make a comeback. I don't think it's gonna get back to Category 5 status, but I think it's certainly going to gain some strength as it moves into those more favorable conditions. Okay, so we're gonna be comparing the models like always here. Starting out looking at the GFS, this is the 18Z GFS, so this is the latest model run. You can see it's still coming out, but we got enough model run time to look at the full length of the storm. So here we go. We're getting into, what is this? This is Monday, and we have a 947 millibar Category 4 hurricane, okay? We can go back to, what was this? This is actually tomorrow, so this is projected tomorrow. The GFS, I mean, I don't know what's going on here, but the GFS is really having trouble picking this up as well because, I think the reason why we're seeing so much trouble with the models with this storm is because it's changing a lot, and we just see like a huge snap change in the forecast really quickly, and so it's completely throwing off the models because you notice here we see a 979 millibar hurricane here. I mean, that's just showing just a Category 1 hurricane. At this point, we'd have a high-end Category 4, so it's way off the GFS, okay? So the GFS having some struggles with this, but it gets it back to its zone where, we're expecting it to be. And so we get to about what are we at? We're at Wednesday. Okay, we're at Wednesday of next week, and we start getting that climb farther north. Okay, at this point here, we're getting into Friday, so this is a week out. All right, we're pretty much in that zone where we know exactly where this is going to go. Once we get to this point, we're going to get it. We're going to know what the impacts are going to be, where this thing is going, okay? So far, on this run, the GFS shows high ridging out here. This is very strong ridging. Probably that would be kind of out like this. So it's going to be kind of like a ring like that, okay? That's definitely going to help make sure that the storm doesn't go way out to sea. I'm not saying that that's the best thing because we want the storm to go out to sea, but it's going to want to push Lee back, okay? And so that might make you concerned about U.S. impacts. But you see here, there is also some very strong ridging right over the northeast. If we got this, pretty much the picture-perfect scenario here. This could be one of the good scenarios that we get because we get a trough here. This is our trough right here, just in time to swoop down and pick up the storm, okay? And at the same time, your high pressure has moved into the northeastern U.S., so that's pretty much going to be a brick wall for any tropical systems to get into the United States. There is not going to be any way for a tropical system to enter the United States. The best it could get, or closest, I should say, is that it scrapes across the coastline, okay? So this is one of the good scenarios that we're so far seeing on the 18Z GFS, okay? And so we see it gets very, very close, okay? It's going to be close for sure, okay? We're close enough to know that this is going to be very, very close to becoming a dangerous system in terms of impacts here. Excuse me, but you can see the outer bands of the hurricane based off this 18Z run. They're pushing into the Massachusetts coastline. So, I mean, we're consistently seeing these storms at least reaching the outer bands, reaching Massachusetts coastline, but some of them have been showing a landfall on here, okay? So that's something we're going to have to watch. I don't want to scare you guys because one problem we're seeing with Lee, everyone, knows that this is a very dangerous storm. It's a very strong storm, but everyone's concerned about it going into the United States. So some people are making graphics or just, maps showing a worst case scenario, okay? That is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I want to show the scenarios that we could have that are most, imaginable, but I don't want to show only the worst case scenario that would throw everyone off and just make everyone very, very, nervous and worried, okay? But it's just very important to me and to everyone out in the weather community that everyone knows what the potential is for the storm to make a landfall. Okay, but instead of making a direct landfall on the northeast coastline, the 18 GFS suggests that the storm will make a direct landfall on Newfoundland. So you guys out there, I mean, I don't want you guys to be freaking out either, but I think you guys also have a pretty decent shot at seeing a landfalling hurricane because if this thing gets caught up by that high pressure ridging out here and is forced to just go right up north and not more or less northeastward, that's going to put you guys at risk. That's also going to put the Northeast at risk a little bit more because that's pushing the storm and shoving it farther west. Okay? But yeah, that's it. And then one thing this is going to be related to today's video. We got to talk about these two guys back here. I think we're going to get two tropical waves that are going to look similar to Lee. And we got to watch them as there could be a potential for some tropical cyclone formation between them. But it's way too early to talk about any of that. But we'll talk about that in future updates for sure. All right, so that was the 18Z run. I'm going to quickly look at the 12Z run because it's interesting here. It's a little different, okay? So Again, the models, they're still shifting back and forth, okay? So they're still making up their mind. But one thing that you can note is that the models they've been getting a little bit sharper here. So they've been meaning that they're deciding a little bit more, kind of like, precisely on what exactly could happen, okay? That's a sign that's saying that we're getting to the point where we could start making some decisions on what might happen, okay? But this is the 12Z GFS, so pretty much same scenario here. We see at this point, the same point we were at here. The storm at this point has 3 ways to go. All right, it could stall out and move into here. Okay, but again, the 12Z. I mean, let me get rid of that arrow. That is a horrible arrow. But the 12Z and the 18Z GFS have been both noting that pretty much in the same exact area, a very high area of high pressure is going to build over the northeastern west right when Lee nears. Okay, that's going to at least push it way off to the coast, but potentially put it out to sea. So I don't think we could even see the storm making a direct landfall. Okay, it could go like this, which that's a that's a scenario. If this thing stalls out, okay, that would be probably what would happen. It could go like this, or let me get rid of that one too. But more or less kind of like this. It's going to move up north and then like that, okay? It can move like that. Or it could go more or less out to sea, okay? Those are the 3 scenarios. I know those areas are horrifyingly bad, but just to kind of give you guys the sense of what could happen from here on out. All right, so we're getting into Friday. This is a week out, Friday of next week. We're getting to Saturday. You don't really see a difference. It's just moving farther north. Continues moving straight up north. Those outer bands reaching into Maine and just the northeastern coastline in general. Then it makes pretty much a direct landfall on Maine and Newfoundland. All right, and then it's pretty much done after that. All right. So Newfoundland and also parts of Maine could definitely be at risk, even if the storm doesn't appear to be going towards the United States. I think Maine, because it's kind of sticking out here, the most far east out of all these coastal regions in the New England, I really do think that Maine could definitely be at risk sometime late next week into early 2 weeks out. That is certainly possible, but we just got to watch out for any possible scenario with this system. So, going to be now looking at the European model here. This is the 12Z Euro. I think the 18 Euro, I don't know when it's coming out, but it should be coming out soon. So you guys should certainly check out that as soon as possible if you want to get the latest information. But we see the storm. It's moving very, very slowly according to the European model, and you can see that the European model, I think it's probably over-strengthening this, but the European model wants this thing becoming another Category 5 hurricane by Tuesday, okay? I'm not completely disagreeing with the European model. I'm just saying that I don't think we're going to get that strong. We're certainly going to have that the re-strengthening, but I don't think it's going to get to that level. But it gets back. The Euro says that it gets back down to 926 millibar hurricane, 925, 923, 914. So, wow, the Euro is really showing another strong, maybe even a stronger Category 5 hurricane as this thing moves closer to the Bahamas. It's getting very close to the Bahamas, almost stalling out here. At this point, let's see. We go from Tuesday of next week all the way to about Thursday, okay? So this is pretty much from Tuesday of next week to Thursday of next week. We see almost no movement. Look how this thing almost stalls out, okay? And we get very lucky that this thing doesn't stall out, because if it does, it could drop south and it could make a direct landfall on the islands out here in the Caribbean, okay? You guys, by the way, you gotta stay alert. Even though the storm is looking like it's not gonna hit you guys, gotta be aware. When you have a Category 5 hurricane that close to you guys, you can't ignore that, okay? You just can't ignore that. Excuse me. But we see the storm starting to move north. Takes a jump west. Notice that on the Euro. You start here at this Friday of a week out, and then starts jumping northwest. Okay, it's still a 947, 951 millibar, likely Category 3 hurricane. Okay, so this is a very strong hurricane with winds well over 100 miles an hour still. Okay, so this is still certainly not a storm to mess with, but the Euro shows this going well. I wouldn't say well out to sea, but it shows the storm pretty much missing the coastline, but making a direct landfall on Newfoundland. So you guys out there, I don't want you guys to be freaking out. Okay, that's the least I want. That's the worst possible thing that I want to happen with you guys. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that you're in a dangerous position to get hit by a very strong hurricane sometime late next week. Okay, so we just you gotta you gotta stick with me here, but I really do think the potential is rising, especially that this because the storm is shifting farther west according to the model runs. That you guys got to be certainly more than on alert for a possible landfall, but pretty much you got to be ready for a possible landfall sometime early next week. That's when we start getting that information based off of where we know exactly the storm could go. All right, so let me pause the video for a second here. I apologize for the background noises if you heard that screaming. I don't know what's going on, my siblings. But we'll look at here. This is our map showing us where our low pressure, our high pressure, and just our regular areas are here. You can see in front of the storm, we don't have that much high pressure. Man, I don't know what is going on here, but my siblings are fighting at the moment. I greatly apologize for that. But anyways, as I was saying, you can see that the ridging is pretty much up north. So you got an open, clear path in front of it. All right, and then that ridging starts to try and knock it out to sea, but it can't do that. The storm is too strong. Okay, and at this point, the gates are open for the storm to not only gain strength, but also start moving north. Okay, so the storm starts to gain latitude, gets cut off by this trough here. So at this point, it would, if the trough didn't exist here, it would probably go into the Carolinas. Okay, if it misses the trough by a long shot, which if the storm were to stall out as it was nearing the Bahamas, we would see a southeast impact. Okay, we're not going to get that. I really don't think the storm is going to stall out. Okay, because it's going to be moving north from there, and it's going to get picked up by that trough. Okay, and so the trough is slow moving and it's weaker. Okay, that could certainly bring the storm a little bit farther west. Okay, if it's strong enough, if the trough is strong too, but it's also slower, that could certainly be a huge problem because we could see the trough being too strong and too slow at the same time, bringing the storm, pulling it into the coastline. That would be the one way we would get one of the few ways we could get a direct landfall on the northeast. But we see those outer bands certainly reaching into the northeast here. So we really got to watch out for any possible impacts with this. There is some ridging up here, pretty strong, so that's keeping it from going way out farther east, away from the U.S., and it makes a landfall in Newfoundland, okay? That's just another one of many scenarios that we've been seeing on the GFS and the Euro, okay? And so that's pretty much it. So we'll be moving on now to our steering currents. These are upper level wind streams here, are just upper level wind currents here. So looking at what could be driving this system, I first want you guys to notice and appreciate how big this anticyclonic flow is around the system. Look at this. This is massive. Okay, and then we have our regular rain bands that are circulating. Let me redraw that. Our rain bands that are circulating counterclockwise. I'm used to drawing in a clockwise direction. So we're actually seeing moving counterclockwise, like all hurricanes and tropical cyclones rotate here. But this is showing a dynamic storm. But you can clearly see that the wind shear is right in this area here, where these winds are starting to push north against the anticyclonic flow. That's ripping apart that shield, which was protecting the storm at one point. We can go back to where this was a Category 5, and you can see it's got an entire, pretty much wall of very strong winds that are just, they're covering the storm, keeping it into that stronger portion here. But you can see it's still a very, very big anticyclonic flow, and it's trying its best here. But you still do have some wind shear, but it's pretty much as big as that. Okay, that's a pretty big anticyclonic flow. Usually you see with hurricanes, you see a little bit of a sharper and more smaller, closed area of circulation here, but this is a very broad area of circulation. But you can see the storm starts progressing. Notice how we get a very big upper level wind stream here. Our dip in the jet stream starting to come with that trough. We also do have some very strong upper level winds starting to flow northward, so that's going to help the storm start gaining latitude. That's going to be a factor of why the storm is going to be moving north. All right? And so here we go. It starts getting caught up in those winds, but those winds aren't exactly pushing directly north. Okay? Some of these winds are pushing kind of like that. That could certainly push this out to sea. It's pretty much at this point directly in line with these winds. But the jet stream here, notice how it dips very far south. It dips all the way down south here where it gets caught up through the Bahamas and Florida and then starts shooting up north. And it's very fast here. Look at these. These are winds that are around 120 miles an hour, around 40,000 feet in the air, okay? So if the storm curves up later, it'll get caught up by these westerly winds here. Excuse me, I am trying not to burp here. I just had some pizza, but if it gets caught up by those northerly winds that are very strong, that are coming out the west, that could certainly push it up into the northeast. Look at this. It gets so strong, we see winds over 150 miles an hour that are associated with that trough. So the GFS has been showing the storm farther east, which would most likely put it, not exactly into the coastline, like if it were to stall out somewhere over here and then get pushed up by these winds. So there's two very different scenarios. So I'll go back and explain this better, the best I can here. So we go back to this point here, okay? These winds here in the jet stream, they're going to start going kind of like this, all right? So if the storm got to this point here, okay, you imagine it starts curving up north like this. It's on a crash course with the northeast. It's perfectly in line. So really, if this storm is just a few, maybe 50, 100 miles farther west, we could get certainly a direct landfall on the northeast. That's definitely something we're going to definitely, let me just say this. We're definitely going to have to watch that for sure, okay? But the GFS shows the storm farther west, but it does slightly get caught up by those winds, which keeps it from going farther out to sea, and it makes landfall on Newfoundland. So, it's just one of many scenarios again. But if this changes and we see the storm curving out a little bit later, that's certainly going to raise concerns very, very high of the Northeast getting hit. All right, so we're going to be now looking at our these are our European ensembles here. All right, and we'll look at the 18Z because I think the 18Z just got I think it just went in here. So I'll get this up for you. I'll pull this up for you guys. So we go at 126 hours here. Okay, and we see a lot of these members doing exactly what I was warning you guys about here. So look, most of the members really taking this farther west, and some of them actually take it hitting the Bahamas. So I don't know what is going on here with the GFS and the European model, but they are really having trouble deciding what's going to go on with the system. So I now am really struggling to figure out what's going on this early. But they show the storm still moving pretty much west northwest, and it's some of them even have it hit the Bahamas. But if they start curving up north at this point, they will certainly get caught up by those winds, and that could definitely take it into the northeast. Okay, so this is something that's really going to be concerning. And let me tell you guys, if you look at the European ensembles when the 18Z is done loading, you guys, you're probably going to see a lot of worst case scenarios. Okay, so you just really gotta watch out for anything. But the difference in the 12Z and the 18Z are huge. All right, we'll go to the 12Z, and we'll go out. Let's see, we'll go over 174 hours here. All right, and we see them starting to curve up a lot farther east. At this point, we would see a lot. On the 18Z, we saw a lot of members starting to curve up at a point here. Most of them, pretty much all of them, are starting to curve up over here. This is pretty much 150-mile difference, okay? And so at this point, you would certainly have, the storm just starting to move straight up north. Not really a threat to the United States, although red currents for sure a big impact, but Newfoundland would really be the last one standing in the picture for a chance to, be landfalled on, if you want to put it that way. But again, there are big changes with this. The 60, we'll look at the 60 now. All right, and the 60 pretty much agrees with the 12Z. But some of these members, watch how these lingering members out here, a few of them showing a possible scenario of southern New England getting hit. Okay. And then finally, we'll look at the OZ here, all right? And the OZ shows pretty much a little bit of both, 50-50 chance. So the European especially is really just having a lot of trouble getting this down, okay? So it's going to take a while for all our information to go in, but we still don't really know what's going to happen when the storm gets into this region here as it gets near the United States. So for the last part of the update, we're going to look at our GFS ensembles. Okay, the GFS shows the storm curving out way, way earlier. Okay, this is very promising to see here. You can see that, it curves out pretty much as early as, earlier than we even need it to really. I don't want to say that, but we definitely see a scenario we want here, where we see the storm starting to curve out a lot earlier, and it almost completely goes out to sea, and maybe even misses Newfoundland even. All right, so the GFS ensemble, pretty much, they're pretty much agreeing on just a path like this, but they're pretty much on both sides. There are some lingering members that take it closer to the United States, and Newfoundland, or some that even take it farther out to sea. So it's really still a 50-50 chance around then for both scenarios here. So just got to watch out for any different, impacts on, different places like the East Coast and then Newfoundland. So that's all I got for you guys. Thanks so much for coming to watch. I apologize greatly for those background noises. I'm sure most of you heard some of them, so I really apologize for that. I'll try and keep those out in the next update, but just got to continue watching Lee with all our eyes and just make sure that we're looking at every tweak in the forecast, every change or new information we get on Lee, and we'll just continue tracking it day by day. So thank you all for coming to watch, and we'll see you guys in the next video.